Why do you think this notion of traditionalness, I don't know what else to call it, conservatism, appeals to so many collectors? Lange is so good at it, but why do you think people desire this? Everything else we buy that's well made, we love modern things, right?
Yeah.
Why is it that we have this fascination, and almost a fetish in some ways, for classic traditional watches?
I think first of all it has to do with the fact that these watches probably will survive every fashion.
Right.
And if you invest that amount of money for something, you rather want to have that for a long time, and you rather want to buy something which you believe you can wear for the next 20, 25 years, where we all know the ties, they got smaller, thinner, taller, you know, colorful, less colorful. With the watch it's slightly different. I guess that's why people look for classical, may say conservative. We also have like the Zeitwerk, a more contemporary looking watch, but people generally speaking prefer round, classical, traditional watches.
Is it because it looked good then, it looks good now,
I
and
think
we think
so.
it'll look good in the future?
You know, it's something which suits you, because we also want to have something around our wrist for a long, long time. And if that's only the flavor of the day, what do you do the next day? So that's, I think that's the driving force behind people going the safe route, which is always going, you know, classical, conservative, high quality, maybe less fashion, but you know, with a subtle charm. That's what I think we're looking for.
No, that makes sense. Lange is so good at it, and there's such a focus on it. Sometimes I wonder if there's like a conversation internally about making it classic enough, but changing it a little bit. It's a delicate mixture, right?
Let me put it this way. We have these 5 different families, and each family has a very clear profile. Let me take the one which is the most opposite, the 1850, which, you know, if we would still build pocket watches, they would look like this.
Sure.
And the Zeitwerk, which is a very contemporary interpretation of our values. And in between we have the Lange one, we have the Richard Lange, and we have the Saxonia. So we'll make sure that every product we develop is a Lange and Söhne overall, but also fits into that product family. And with that we can root the brand's design into what we're known for, but at the same time we can push boundaries, which is very important, because otherwise you become boring.
Over the years I've really thought of the idea that when you pick up a watch and you look at the movements, that's what tells you what it's worth. And that's why there's so much focus on movements. So the question is, in terms of averages maybe, I think it would be very interesting to be able to communicate to people what percentage of the value, at least, or even the effort in building it from a man or woman hours perspective goes into it. So if it's 1,000 hours to make something, a certain amount of those are finishing.
You know, I never made a calculation, but I know roughly how many people we have working in all the finishing departments.
Right.
And that's a big number. So I assume that probably 30-35% of all the time spent on every watch on average will go into, you can call it decoration, because that's what it really is, be it engraving, be it finishing, black polishing, brushing, you know, all the different techniques. And you can push it even further with all the Handwerkskunst editions, because there is, you know, there is probably closer to 60% that goes into really the finishing and the decoration part of the watch. We still have to go a long way to educate those that have no idea about our brand. You know, simple things. We don't distinguish between in the way of finishing and decoration and quality control between, let's say, this watch or this watch. You know, that's sort of a €500,000. That's about 15,000 euro. But in the quality, there's no difference.
So they get, even though they have different number of parts, it's the same time.
It's the same.
Per
Every part goes through the same department, and I don't distinguish between, oh, that part will go into a €500,000 watch, and that one will go into a 15,000 euro. So, and we do everything, you know, not just the parts that you see.
That's a good piece of
even
information.
those parts that you don't see. You know, we don't distinguish in quality. We don't distinguish in what you see and what you don't see. It's a complete, honest, handmade product from A to Z, regardless what you buy from us.
What one or two or three are the ones that you're most proud of? You're like, wow, this was great. I did a good job. This looks amazing.
Look, it's never me doing a good job. It's actually the team doing a good job to start with. But there are watches that are, you know, you have a personal link, an attachment. There is the datograph up and down because it was the first watch where I was deeply involved.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's actually the watch that I bought immediately. Had to have it.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
I think it's a beautiful
Amazing.
watch. For me, it's, you know, because you can wear it with jeans and with a suit. So it's one of these watches that, you know, we always dress properly, which is important. You know, so that's.
I always think of it as how Lange does sports watch.
Not yet, no.
No, but the datograph, like
yeah.
if there's a Lange sports watch, that's what
if there is one,
yeah.
it's either the Zeitwerk or this one. You know,
Right,
the Zeitwerk also goes, you know, touches that area. So that's the two watches. The other one, because I believe it epitomizes everything our Lange Sohne stands for, is the Lange 1 Tourbillon Perpetual Calendar. It's so innovative. It is so subtle. It is so understated. And it's such a complex, wonderful watch. I think that's, you know, it's very difficult to top.
Yeah.
To top the watch. And at the end, I have to say, because the minute repeater was something that we worked so long and hard for, I'm pretty proud of that little baby.
Yeah, the Zeitwerk minute repeater.
The Zeitwerk minute repeater it's a fantastic watch. And again, you know, minute repeaters are now around for about 200 years. To come up with something really new is so difficult. So therefore, I think, you know, these three watches, I think they're in the top of my list at least.
Good choice, good choice. One last question. We talked about how the brand has very traditional conservative values and appeals to the individuals that themselves value that. But at the same time, any company, especially in the luxury industry, has to always be thinking about developing new markets.
Yes.
What is sort of the approach of taking this set of very sort of, I guess you have to sort of, they're mature values, but to take it to new markets and to new customers and convey it in a way that they understand immediately. Is there a strategy there? Is there something that you find works? I'm always interested in that.
Look, it's, I mean, it may happen once in a while that somebody sees one of our watches, has lots of money and just buys it, but that's not the normal business.
No.
Usually it means that you went through the ranks, you familiarized yourself with watches, you know, you bought a few watches, and then eventually you go to the Champions League of fine watchmaking, and there are about 5 brands that you may choose from, and usually one of these 5 brands is us. And then at the end it's always which package do you want. There's the more French, there's the more German, there's the more outstanding, you know, they're different. I mean, that's then a question of personal taste predominantly. What we found so far is because of that process, going too early into markets doesn't make sense because you don't have the critical mass of these people. We always come from our one target group, which is the watch collector. And we develop for watch collectors. And we develop, you know, for press and journalists that are keen to understand what we do. And with that, we actually reach enough people for our small production.